My name is Daniel. I'm 46 years old, an engineer by trade, the kind of man who believes almost every problem has a solution if you're willing to get your hands dirty and stay long enough to finish the job. Machines made sense to me. People rarely did. When I married Heather, I wasn't just marrying a woman. I was stepping into a family that already had a history written long before I arrived. She came with 2 children. Noah was 14, Olivia was 11, and 1,000 invisible wounds left behind by a man named Ryan, who had mastered the art of disappearing just often enough to avoid responsibility, while never completely disappearing from their hearts. I never tried to replace him. That was my first mistake. I believed I didn't have to compete with biology. I thought consistency would matter more than blood. I thought showing up every single day would eventually outweigh showing up twice a year with expensive birthday presents and empty promises. Looking back now, I understand how naive that sounds. Ryan specialized in moments. I specialized in consequences. He bought Noah his first hunting knife. I paid for the stitches after Noah sliced his hand trying to impress his friends. He surprised Olivia with concert tickets. I stayed awake until 3 in the morning when she called crying because her friend's car had broken down 2 counties away. He gave them memories. I gave them stability. And stability is invisible until it's gone. For nearly 15 years, I became the emergency contact for a family that never truly considered me family. It started with little things. A flat tire before school. A dead battery in a grocery store parking lot. A leaking water heater. A broken washing machine. Someone always called me. Not because they loved me. Because I always answered. I cannot count how many weekends disappeared underneath the hood of Noah's cars. It was never just one car. He had a talent for buying cheap vehicles that looked good from a distance and collapsed one expensive part at a time. Every few months my phone would ring. Daniel, the transmission. Or, Daniel, it won't start. Or my favorite. Daniel, I think smoke is supposed to come out of there? I'd grab my toolbox. Drive across town. Spend hours underneath rusted metal while Noah stood nearby scrolling through his phone. Sometimes he thanked me. Most times he didn't. I convinced myself teenagers were like that. Then came Olivia. Her first speeding ticket. Her second. Her third. Insurance deductibles. Tow trucks. Parking violations. A cracked bumper after backing into a mailbox. Another deductible after she clipped someone's mirror because texting apparently mattered more than looking through a windshield. Every disaster somehow found its way into my checking account. Heather would sigh. I don't know what we'd do without you. Neither did I. Because no one ever had to find out. Whenever life became expensive, I quietly absorbed the impact. Whenever something broke, I fixed it. Whenever someone made a terrible decision, I cleaned up whatever was left behind. It became so normal that nobody even asked anymore. They simply assumed I'd handle it. Maybe that's what happens when you're dependable. Dependability slowly transforms into expectation. Expectation eventually becomes entitlement. And entitlement has a terrible habit of erasing gratitude. Years passed. Noah became an adult. Then Olivia. Their problems became more expensive. Their appreciation became smaller. The words also changed. At first it was harmless. You're not my real dad. I let that go. Because it was true. Then, my dad said. Or, my dad thinks. Ryan suddenly became an expert on parenting despite barely participating in it. Whenever he criticized me, his opinions carried weight. Whenever I actually solved something, it was simply expected. It felt like building a house where someone else collected all the compliments. I still stayed. Because I loved Heather. Because families are complicated. Because I kept believing effort eventually mattered. I was wrong. The night everything changed wasn't dramatic. There were no storms. No broken plates. No screaming. Just a family dinner at Heather's cousin's house. 20 people around 2 long tables. Children running through the backyard. Adults drinking iced tea and pretending life wasn't exhausting. It should have been forgettable. Instead, it became the dividing line between two different versions of my life. The conversation drifted toward cars. Noah laughed about another speeding ticket. Someone joked that he should finally learn responsibility. I smiled. Maybe slowing down would cost less than calling me every few months. I said it lightly. Everyone laughed. Except Noah. His smile disappeared. What does that mean? It means, I answered calmly, I'm getting a little tired of paying for mistakes that shouldn't keep happening. Silence. The kind that settles over a table before anyone realizes dinner is about to end badly. Heather stared at her plate. I noticed. She always stared at her plate when conflict arrived. Noah leaned back in his chair. You didn't have to help. No, I said. I chose to. He shrugged. Then don't act like you're some kind of hero. The words landed harder than I expected. Still, I stayed calm. I've never asked to be a hero. Olivia finally looked up. Her expression wasn't angry. It was colder than anger. Almost bored. As if she had been waiting years for this conversation. Then she smiled. A small smile. The kind that carries absolutely no warmth. When you're gone, she said quietly, we won't even remember your name. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. For one endless second I simply looked at her. Waiting. Waiting for Heather to say something. Anything. Tell her she was out of line. Tell her that wasn't acceptable. Tell her to apologize. Heather lowered her eyes. She said nothing. Not one word. That silence hurt more than Olivia's sentence ever could. Because children sometimes say cruel things. Parents are supposed to stop them. Instead, Heather hoped the moment would simply disappear if nobody acknowledged it. I looked around the table. People suddenly found their food fascinating. No one met my eyes. No one defended me. 15 years. Thousands of repairs. Middle of the night rescues. Tow trucks. Insurance deductibles. Traffic tickets. Missed weekends. Missed vacations. Missed sleep. Reduced to a man whose name wasn't even worth remembering. I didn't argue. There was nothing left to argue about. People reveal exactly how they see you when they stop needing your approval. I folded my napkin. Placed it beside my plate. Finished the last sip of my coffee. Then I smiled. Not because I was happy. Because I was finally finished. That night, driving home beside Heather in complete silence, I made the easiest decision of my entire life. From that day forward, I would never fix another one of their cars. I would never pay another ticket. I would never call another tow truck. I would never rescue another disaster they created. If my name wasn't worth remembering, neither were my sacrifices. The first call came 9 days later. Not 10. Not 2 weeks. 9. I was in the garage, cleaning old grease from a socket wrench I had owned longer than I had known Heather, when my phone buzzed against the workbench. Noah. For a moment, I just stared at his name. There are names that carry history. His carried invoices. Tow trucks. Oil stains. Midnight highways. Broken promises. I let it ring until it stopped. Then it rang again. I answered on the 4th ring. Daniel, he said, breathless. My car died. I looked down at the wrench in my hand. Of course it had. Where? Interstate. Mile marker 83. I don't know what happened. It just started shaking, then the engine light came on, then it quit. Behind his voice I could hear traffic tearing past him in angry waves. Once, that sound would have put me on my feet before he finished speaking. Once I would have grabbed my keys, my jump pack, my tools, my wallet, and whatever patience I still had left. But that man had died at a dinner table. I'm sorry to hear that, I said. There was a pause. What do you mean? I mean, I'm sorry your car died. Okay, he snapped, panic sharpening into irritation. So are you coming or not? I wiped the wrench with a rag. Slowly. Carefully. No. The silence on the line was almost beautiful. What? No. Daniel, I'm on the interstate. I heard you. My car won't start. I heard that too. Another pause. Then the old tone appeared. The one he used whenever he remembered he needed me but didn't want to sound like he needed me. Look, I don't have time for whatever this is. Can you just come get me? I leaned against the workbench and looked around my garage. My shelves were lined with tools I had bought to fix their problems. Jack stands, battery chargers, spare fuses, fluids, a whole wall of equipment dedicated to disasters that never belonged to me. Noah, I said quietly, call Ryan. He laughed once. Short. Ugly. Seriously? Very. He won't know what to do. Then he can learn. You know he's busy. So was I. Every time. That landed. I heard him breathing. Then, lower now, angrier. You're really doing this because of what Olivia said? No. Then what? I'm doing this because all of you told me what I was. I listened. Daniel. No. Your father is Ryan. That was made clear. Fathers handle interstate breakdowns. Call yours. He cursed under his breath. A truck roared past him so loudly the phone crackled. You're being petty. Noah, I said. Petty is forgetting a man's name after he spent years saving you from your own bad decisions. This is just me accepting the role you assigned me. He didn't answer. Then he hung up. I stood there with the phone in my hand, waiting for guilt to arrive. It didn't. What arrived instead was memory. Noah at 16, standing beside a smoking sedan while I crawled under it in rainwater. Noah at 19, calling me at 1:12 in the morning because he had slid into a ditch after showing off for friends. Noah at 21, needing $800 for repairs he swore he would pay back. He never did. Not once. I went back to cleaning my wrench. 2 hours later, Heather came into the garage. She didn't knock. She never knocked when she was angry. Did Noah call you? Yes. And you just left him there? No. I told him to call his father. Her face hardened. That's cruel. I almost laughed. Not because it was funny. Because cruelty had become a word people used when consequences finally reached someone they loved. Heather, I didn't break his car. He could have been hurt. He has a phone. He has insurance. He has Ryan. You know Ryan won't help the way you do. I set the wrench down. There it was. The truth, finally spoken without decoration. Then maybe Ryan should have been the one sitting at that dinner table being defended. Her eyes flashed. That was one comment. No, I said. It was one comment spoken after years of smaller ones. And your silence was not small. She looked away. That was her habit. When truth entered the room, Heather always found something else to study. The floor. The wall. Her own hands. Anything but the man bleeding in front of her. They didn't mean it. She whispered. I nodded once. Funny how people never mean the wound, only the benefits. She crossed her arms. So this is who you are now? No, I said. This is who I should have been sooner. The second call came 4 days later. Olivia. I was at work, standing in a conference room full of diagrams and tired engineers, when her name lit up my screen. I declined it. She called again. Then a text appeared. Need money. Got another ticket. Please don't make this weird. Please don't make this weird. I stared at those words for longer than they deserved. A speeding ticket was not weird. Calling the man whose name you planned to forget, and expecting his credit card to fix your irresponsibility. That was weird. I stepped out into the hall and called her back. She answered fast. So you saw my text? I did. It's stupid. The cop was being a jerk. I was barely over. How fast? Silence. Olivia. 91. In a 65? He said 70. That doesn't help you. She groaned. I just need to pay it before it gets worse. My insurance is already insane. Yes. Because this keeps happening. Can you not lecture me right now? I looked through the glass wall at my coworkers bent over blueprints, solving problems with numbers, pressure limits, tolerances. In engineering, repeated failure meant redesign. In families, repeated failure had become my monthly bill. I'm not lecturing you, I said. I'm refusing. Another silence. Then her voice dropped into ice. You're still mad. I'm clear. About one sentence? About a lifetime summarized by one sentence. She scoffed. You're being dramatic. No. Dramatic would be announcing that someone who paid your fines, fixed your car, and showed up every time you cried for help wouldn't even be remembered after he was gone. Her breathing changed. For the first time, she had no quick answer. I didn't mean it like that, she said. How did you mean it? Nothing. Call Ryan, I said. Dad won't pay for this. Dad? There it was. Clean as a knife. I closed my eyes. Then Dad can explain why. Daniel, come on. No. If I don't pay, they'll add fees. Then you should pay. I don't have that kind of money. Then you should drive slower. She hung up too. They both had their father's talent for leaving before accountability arrived. That evening, Heather waited for me in the kitchen. The room smelled like roasted chicken and resentment. She called me crying, Heather said. I'm sure she did. You embarrassed her. I wasn't the one going 91. You know what I mean. I did. Heather meant I had disrupted the arrangement. The quiet economy of our household. They created damage. I absorbed cost. They kept their pride. I kept the receipts. Do you understand what you're doing? She asked. Yes. You're pushing them away. I looked at her then. Really looked. At the woman I had loved. At the woman who had watched me become an appliance in her children's lives. Useful. Expected. Replaceable. No, Heather. They put me outside years ago. I'm just no longer paying rent for a room I was never allowed to enter. Her mouth trembled, but no tears came. Not yet. Tears usually came when she wanted mercy without correction. This family is falling apart, she said. I nodded. It was never balanced enough to stand. The third call did not come from either child. It came from an impound lot. A bored man named Curtis told me Olivia's vehicle had been towed after being parked illegally behind a closed bar. The registered emergency contact listed on an old form was me. Of course it was. My number was everywhere. I was the net beneath every fall. Curtis explained the fees. Towing. Storage. Administrative charge. Daily rate beginning at midnight. He spoke like a man reading weather. I thanked him. Then I gave him Ryan's number. Heather found out within the hour. This time, she didn't accuse me in the kitchen. She followed me into the bedroom and shut the door hard enough to rattle the frame. Daniel, stop. I turned from the dresser. Stop what? Stop punishing them. I'm not punishing them. I'm resigning. They're my children. I know. They made mistakes. They made many. And you're supposed to be the adult. I felt something old and tired rise in my chest. A bitter thing. A truthful thing. I was the adult when Noah called from Rex. I was the adult when Olivia needed deductibles. I was the adult when Ryan missed birthdays and you made excuses. I was the adult when your children mocked me and you prayed the floor would swallow the conversation before you had to defend your husband. She flinched. Good. Some truths deserve to leave bruises. I have been the adult for everyone, I said. And I am tired. Her voice softened. That was worse. Daniel, they're scared. They should be. You don't mean that. I do. Fear is what teaches people who refuse gratitude. She stared at me as if I had become something monstrous. Maybe I had. Or maybe I had simply stopped being convenient. That night, Ryan finally entered the story not as a ghost, but as a man with a ringing phone and unpaid obligations. Noah called him first. Then Olivia. Then Heather. I knew because the house became a theater of muffled conversations. Doors closing. Voices rising. Long silences. Then the same phrases repeated like prayers losing power. He won't. He says he can't. He said it's not his responsibility. I sat in the living room with a book open on my lap. I did not read a single word. I listened. Not proudly. Not happily. Just carefully. There is a particular sound a family makes when the person they took for granted finally steps aside. At first, confusion. Then anger. Then fear. Then bargaining. Ryan did exactly what I expected. He promised sympathy. He offered advice. He told Noah to call roadside assistance. He told Olivia she needed to learn from this. He told Heather that grown adults should manage their own consequences. The same man whose blood had been sacred suddenly discovered the gospel of personal responsibility. By Friday, Noah had paid for a motel near the interstate because the repair shop couldn't look at his car for 3 days. By Saturday, Olivia's impound fees had doubled. By Monday, both of them were angry enough to call me heartless and desperate enough to call me again anyway. I answer neither. Because a boundary only becomes real after the first attempt to break it fails. Heather stopped sleeping beside me after that. She said she needed space. I gave it to her. Space was the one thing nobody in that house had ever needed me to finance. For 3 weeks, the consequences ripened. Noah borrowed money from friends, then from a payday lender, then stopped answering calls from both. Olivia sold a designer purse Ryan had bought her 3 Christmases earlier to get her car out of impound. The irony was almost poetic. Ryan's gift paid for the kind of mess Ryan refused to clean up. Noah's car needed a fuel pump, then a sensor, then a second repair because the first mechanic had been the cheapest instead of the best. That was a lesson too. Cheap repairs are often expensive confessions. Olivia's insurance premium jumped again. She cried to Heather. Heather cried to me. I did not move. Not because I enjoyed their suffering. I didn't. That was the terrible part. I still cared. I still woke at night imagining Noah stranded under orange highway lights. I still pictured Olivia standing in a tow yard with mascara running down her face. Love does not disappear just because dignity returns. But love without respect becomes a leash. And I had worn mine long enough. One evening, Heather found me on the back porch. The sun was sinking behind the fence, turning the yard the color of old copper. She stood beside me for a long time before speaking. Ryan told Olivia she needs to grow up. I nodded. He told Noah the same thing. He's right. She looked at me then, wounded by my agreement. You wanted this? No. Then why does it feel like you did? I breathed in slowly. Because the truth was ugly. Because part of me did want it. Not their pain. Never that. But the revelation. The moment when the holy name of Ryan was placed under the same weight I had carried for years and cracked almost immediately. I wanted them to know, I said. Know what? What my love cost. Heather's eyes filled. This time, I believed the tears. Not because they were for me. Because finally, perhaps, she understood the price of her silence. I should have said something that night, she whispered. I looked out at the darkening yard. Yes. I was just trying not to make it worse. You did make it worse. She wiped her cheek. I know. Those 2 words should have healed something. They didn't. Some apologies arrive after the funeral and expect the dead to rise. I was not dead. But the man who believed Heather would defend him was. A few days later, Noah came to the house. Not calling. Not texting. He just appeared at the front door, thinner somehow, shoulders heavy, hair unwashed, pride dragging behind him like a ruined coat. I opened the door but did not invite him in. For a long moment, he looked at me. No smirk. No demand. No anger sharp enough to hide behind. Just exhaustion. "I'm not here for money," he said. I waited. He swallowed hard. "I need to talk." Behind him, his car was missing. For the first time since he was 16, Noah had arrived without expecting me to repair what brought him there. That alone felt like a beginning. Not forgiveness. Not yet. But perhaps the first honest sound after years of noise. So I stepped aside and let him enter. Noah stood in my entryway like a man who had aged 10 years in a month. His shoulders were slumped, his clothes wrinkled, and the confidence that had once filled every room before he entered was gone. For the first time since I had known him, he looked uncertain. "I meant what I said," he told me quietly. "I'm not here to ask for money." I nodded toward the living room. "Sit." He lowered himself onto the couch, resting his elbows on his knees. For nearly a minute neither of us spoke. The silence wasn't uncomfortable. It was honest. Finally, he looked at me. "My car's gone." I noticed. "I sold it." That surprised me. Not because he sold it. Because he admitted it without making excuses. "The repairs kept getting worse," he continued. "Then the loan. Then the towing bill. Then the interest. Every time I fixed one problem, 2 more showed up." I listened without interrupting. "I thought you were just trying to punish me." He rubbed his hands together. "But after Ryan told me I needed to deal with it myself, I started thinking." He laughed once. It wasn't a happy laugh. "It turns out paying people to fix your mistakes is expensive." I couldn't help answering. "I've known that for years." His eyes dropped to the floor. "I know." Those words carried more weight than any apology. "I kept remembering every time you came to help me. Every flat tire. Every breakdown. Every accident. I never realized how much time it actually took." "You didn't have to realize it," I replied. "You just had to respect it." He nodded slowly. "I didn't." "No." Another silence settled between us. Different this time. Less defensive. Less hostile. More like 2 men looking at the same truth from opposite sides. I blamed Ryan for not helping. Noah admitted. Then I realized. He was doing exactly what I'd always accused you of doing. I raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean?" He kept saying I was an adult. That my choices were my responsibility. And that's exactly what you always tried to teach me. I just never listened because you were always there to rescue me afterward. His voice cracked on the last sentence. I never had to live with my own decisions. There it was. The lesson I had hoped consequences would teach. Not because I wanted him to suffer. Because I wanted him to grow. "I made your life too easy," I said. "No." He shook his head immediately. "I made it easy by expecting you to clean everything up." I studied his face carefully. People can fake regret. Real accountability sounds different. It doesn't defend itself. It doesn't negotiate. It simply accepts reality. "I owe you an apology," he said quietly. "For what?" "For treating you like an employee instead of family." The words hit harder than I expected. Because they were true. "When Olivia said you'd be forgotten," he continued, "I should have stopped her." "Yes." "I didn't." "No." "I was wrong." I believed him. Not because he sounded convincing. Because he wasn't asking for anything. No repair. No loan. No rescue. Just the chance to tell the truth. "What happens now?" he asked. I leaned back in my chair. "That depends." "On what?" "Whether this conversation changes your life or just today's mood." He frowned. "I don't understand." "I spent years solving emergencies. Every emergency disappeared. Your habits didn't." He nodded slowly. "So if I help again, it won't be because you need rescuing." "Then why?" "Because you've proven you can carry your own weight first." He sat quietly, considering that. What would that look like? You find your own transportation. I already have. You pay your own debts. I'm working overtime. You stop expecting someone else to absorb the consequences of your choices. He looked me directly in the eyes. I can do that. I hope so. We heard footsteps in the hallway. Heather stopped in the doorway, frozen. She looked from Noah to me, almost afraid to speak. You two are talking? Noah stood. We're finally listening. Heather's eyes filled with tears. She smiled for the first time in weeks. I didn't. Some wounds don't close because one conversation goes well. Trust returns slower than apologies. Heather walked over and hugged her son tightly. When she looked at me, there was hope in her expression. Hope that everything could go back to the way it had been. She was wrong. Nothing was going back. I wasn't becoming the family's emergency mechanic again. I wasn't reopening my wallet every time responsibility became inconvenient. That version of me was gone forever. If this family was going to survive, it would have to stand on 4 adults instead of 1. As Noah reached the front door, he turned back. I'll tell Olivia to come talk to you. I shook my head. No. He looked confused. If she comes, it has to be because she chooses to. Not because you told her to. He smiled faintly. I guess that's fair. After he left, I watched his borrowed pickup disappear down the street. Heather slipped her hand into mine. You think he'll change? I looked at the empty road. I think life already has. And for the first time in a very long while, I believed that might be enough. Olivia came 3 days later. Not because Noah brought her. Not because Heather begged. Because consequences had finally found her address. She stood on my porch at dusk, arms wrapped around herself, eyes red but dry. She had always hated looking weak. Even as a girl, she would rather bleed quietly than admit she needed help. I opened the door. She didn't step inside. Do you hate me? She asked. The question was so sudden I almost answered too quickly. No. Her chin trembled. You should. Maybe. That hurt her. Good. Some wounds need air before they heal. She looked past me into the house, at the hallway where she had once dropped backpacks, coats, shoes, excuses. A whole childhood of small messes I had quietly picked up. I sold the purse, she said. I heard. Ryan bought it. I remember. He told me I should be more careful with money. I said nothing. She laughed bitterly. The man who forgot my 16th birthday gave me financial advice. The old me would have comforted her. The new me let the sentence sit. Finally, she looked at me. I was cruel. Yes. I said something disgusting. You did. And Mom should have stopped me. I studied her carefully. Yes. Her eyes filled then. But I shouldn't have needed stopping. For the first time, I saw something real break through the pride. Not fear. Not inconvenience. Shame. She wiped her face angrily, as if tears were another debt she refused to owe. I kept thinking about what I said. About your name. And then every form I filled out after the impound. Your number was still there. Emergency contact. Backup contact. Responsible party. Her voice thinned. You were everywhere. I felt that in my chest. Because it was true. I had been everywhere except in their hearts. I didn't understand. She whispered. I thought help was just what you did. Like it wasn't costing you anything. It cost me weekends. Sleep. Money. Peace. I know. No, I said quietly. You know now. She nodded. That mattered. Because there is a difference between regret and recognition. Regret says, I don't like what happened to me. Recognition says, I see what I did to you. I don't want money, she said. Good. I don't want you to fix my car. Better. I want to know if there's any way I can make it right. Behind me, I heard Heather stop somewhere in the hall. Listening. Holding her breath. I stepped onto the porch and closed the door halfway behind me. This conversation did not belong to Heather. Not yet. You can't make it right with words, I told Olivia. She nodded again. I know. You can't thank me one time and erase years. I know. And you can't call me family only when Ryan disappoints you. Her face tightened. That one reached deep. I know, she said again, smaller now. For a long moment, we stood in the fading light. I remembered her at 11, sitting at my kitchen table with homework spread everywhere, pretending she didn't understand math because she wanted someone to stay with her. I remembered teaching her to drive in an empty school parking lot while she screamed every time she touched the brake. I remembered her graduation, how I stood behind Ryan in every photograph because blood always got the front row. Memory is a cruel mechanic. It repairs nothing. It only shows you every place the structure failed. If I help you again, I said, it won't be rescue. She looked up. It will be support after effort. You understand the difference? I think so. No. You need to know so. She straightened. Support means I bring you a plan. Rescue means I bring you a disaster. For the first time in weeks, I almost smiled. Almost. That's close enough. She breathed out shakily. I started looking for a weekend job. Good. And I called the court about the ticket. They said I can do a payment plan. Better. And I found a mechanic. Not the cheapest. One Noah said was honest. That's your brother's first useful contribution in months. A weak laugh escaped her. Then it died quickly, like she felt guilty for making any sound that wasn't apology. Daniel. She rarely said my name softly. Usually it came with irritation, need, or distance. This time it came with weight. I do remember your name. I looked away. Because that sentence hurt more than the insult. Not because it fixed anything. Because I had wanted to hear it for so long that hearing it now felt almost unbearable. I remember every time you came. She continued. Even when I acted like I didn't. I remember you picking me up when that girl ditched me after the party. I remember you changing my tire in your work clothes. I remember you paying the deductible after I hit the mailbox and telling Mom not to yell because I was already scared. Her voice broke. I remember. I gripped the porch railing. Old anger rose. Then old love. They fought inside me like two dogs locked in the dark. You should have remembered before you tried to bury me, I said. She flinched. I know. There was nothing else to say. And yet there was everything. I opened the door wider. You can come in. She stared at me. Are you sure? No. That was the truth. But I stepped aside anyway. Inside, Heather stood near the kitchen, tears already falling. Olivia didn't run to her. She looked at me first. That small act should not have mattered. It did. We sat at the table. The same table where bills had been paid, lectures ignored, promises made and forgotten. Olivia laid out her plan. Payment schedule. Work hours. Insurance increase. Repair estimate. For once, the numbers were not being handed to me like a sentence. They were being carried by her. I reviewed them because I was still an engineer. Problems still spoke to me. You'll need to cut expenses, I said. I know. No takeout. No online shopping. No weekends out until this stabilizes. She nodded. No blaming the cop. A faint flush crossed her cheeks. Yeah. And if you get another ticket, don't call me. I won't. I believed she meant it. I did not yet believe she would live it. Those are different things. When she left that night, Heather walked me to the porch. Thank you, she whispered. I looked at her. For what? For giving them another chance. I shook my head. I gave them conditions. There's a difference. She lowered her eyes. I know. You need them too. Her face lifted. What? You don't get to stand silent anymore. Not with them. Not with me. Not in this family. The words hung between us. Finally, she nodded. I know. Maybe she did. Maybe she was only afraid of losing what remained. Either way, fear had finally taught what comfort never could. Over the next weeks, change came slowly. Not beautifully. Not cleanly. Noah missed a payment and called the lender himself. Olivia skipped a family brunch to take an extra shift. Heather corrected Noah the first time he said, "Real dad," like it was a crown. The house did not heal. It adjusted. There were fewer calls. Fewer emergencies. Fewer assumptions that my hands existed only to pull them from wreckage. And one evening, Noah showed up with oil on his shirt and said he had changed his own brakes. They were installed correctly. I checked. I am not reckless. Olivia brought me a receipt for her first ticket payment and placed it on the table like proof of life. Neither asked for praise. That was how I knew they deserved some. I did not become soft again. I did not forget. But I began, carefully, to believe that maybe respect could grow where entitlement had once poisoned the soil. Not all at once. Not without scars. Never without scars. Because love is not proven by who claims you in comfort. Love is proven by who carries responsibility when the road goes dark. And for the first time, they were learning to walk without making me crawl.